going on, everybody? Welcome back to another tutorial video. There is going to be a algorithm update coming out for Google in May of 2021. And if your website passes the core web vitals tests and you have good site speed and good user experience based on what they are signifying as a good user experience, then you will be receiving a ranking boost. And this has been confirmed by John Mueller at Google. So I'm going to show you a few different ways you can test your website to see the site speed of your website. And then I'll also walk you through what some of the action steps that they provide mean, because some of it is a little bit more techy and for the everyday SEO professional or website owner out there, it may not make a ton of sense to you. So I'm just going to walk you through what some of it means and then some easy ways that you can take some first steps into making your website faster. So the first way that I would recommend running a test on your website is through the Google Lighthouse reports. So you'll go to your website and you'll right click and then you'll go down to where it says inspect. And then you'll see all of this funky stuff going on here. Ignore all of that and go over to the right where you see the double right arrows and click on that. And you'll see it says Lighthouse. Click on Lighthouse. And now you've got all these options that you can test for. So you can test for performance, progressive web app, best practices, accessibility, SEO. Then you can also test on mobile versus desktop. So for the sake of this video, we're going to get rid of these and we're only going to test the performance because that is what they are going to be running this ranking boost in the algorithm update against, which is the performance. So you'll hit generate report and you can choose between mobile and desktop. I would recommend running a report for both. Mobile is more important, but it is still important to make sure that everything's good on desktop as well. I'm only doing desktop for this video because I know that it goes faster when generating this report. So it'll show you've got a 93 score, which is good. Granted, this is just the desktop version, but it's going to give you all of these opportunities where you can improve your website load time. And so you can go through here and see what some of this bloat is that's making your website load a little bit slower than what it should be. It'll give you some ideas on how to fix it. You can learn more about it. But most of the time, if you're running a WordPress website, it has to do with plugins. So that's the first way you can test it. Now, with this algorithm update, they are basing it on this report. So if you have this in the green, you're good to go. If it's in the yellow, you have some work to do. If it's red, you need to get some stuff figured out really quickly because you want it to be green. So there's another way to test it, and this is on gtmetrics.com. Now, gtmetrics.com is going to give you a little bit more technical user experience data, whereas the Lighthouse reports kind of gives you the big picture. They give it to you straightforward, the items that you need to fix. GT Metrics, what they're going to do is scan your website and give you a full waterfall of how it loads and the entire time to interactive for your website. And it'll show you it all right here in a second once it runs this report. But John Mueller even admitted in a video, I will put a link to it down in the description, that you should run on all three of these, including GT Metrics as well, because GT Metrics will give you more insight. Now, we've run two tests so far. We've done the Lighthouse report and we've done GT Metrics. Lighthouse said 93, GT Metrics says 94. So we can kind of gather that these are fairly consistent, which is a good sign, which means that we can accurately believe any of these really. So GT Metrics is really cool because it'll give you the big stuff that you need, like the largest contentful pane, total block time, cumulative layout shift. But it's going to give you a visualization of your entire website's load time. And it does a good job of breaking down what these different things mean. Like the first contentful paint, that's the first time when your website has loaded anything at all. So it goes from white to something. That's the first contentful paint. The largest contentful paint is whenever you're beginning to get the large majority of the content that's on your website loaded. And then you've got the time to interactive, which is when everything is like settled and going and then fully loaded. Boom, full experience. That's 2 seconds. So they give you all your top issues here. They give you the impact. Since the Rival Digital website is pretty solid, there isn't a ton of action items here, but if your website's slow, you'll see a lot of these in the red, and you will want to work on those. One more test we're going to run is the Google Page Speed Insights. Now, this is more or less going to show us the same thing that the Lighthouse report showed us, but it's going to break it down in a little bit more friendly way than the Lighthouse report, because this is kind of hard to get to if you're not very tech savvy with websites. All that right clicking and dealing with all of this can be kind of challenging. So just go to Google and type in Page Speed Insights. It'll give you the same thing. But the cool thing here is that it will run mobile and desktop. So desktop 94, that's consistent with all of this. Our mobile 55, which is not amazing. So here's an opportunity for us to fix some things with our mobile experience. So it's going to show you what's causing this experience to render a little bit slower for the mobile device. And then you'll come down here to opportunities, and it will show you some of the things that are causing it to load slow, and it'll show you the estimated amount of time savings. So if I do all of these changes, we can assume that I will save roughly 2.45 seconds on that website load time. So we'll click down on that, and you see there's all of this crazy stuff going on here. So these are render blocking resources. So in layman's term, what this means is when your website loads, they go into the browser, they type in your website, it makes a call to your server and says, hey, this person wants to read your website. The server then sends the documents over to that person's web browser, and you have your HTML, your CSS, your JavaScript, all of these files that are on your server begin to render. Now, the HTML is the final output of what they see, but all of these other documents in here are what makes it functional and what make it look good for the user. So if you have more of these resources that are loading above the HTML document, it causes it to slow down. So what can we do about this? These are render blocking resources. So what we can do is there's a number of plugins out there. I try to stay away from adding unnecessary plugins because that will just take one problem and push it over to another area. So what you can do if you have hard-coded your website is manually defer some of these things from loading until they're necessary, because a lot of these things, like this is a plugin. This is an icon asset. This is JavaScript. This is CSS. We need that. So we probably shouldn't defer that from loading immediately, because that will render the website a little bit slower. So some of these things we have to go through and figure out, is this necessary for the initial website experience? Not the overall experience, because obviously if you have it on your server and on your website, it plays some role of importance. But the question is, do I need this element or this resource at the very beginning of the user's experience with my website? So if the answer is no, like this is a Clean Talk plugin that I've got. It prevents spam bots from going on our contact form and typing in like porn comments and typing in spam links. If you have a WordPress website, you're probably very familiar with this happening to you. So this plugin is not really necessary from the jump, because the spam bot is usually waiting for the website to load, and then going to the contact form, which is going to be either on your contact page or wherever page it's on. So this isn't really necessary. So what we can do is defer this from loading, or we can just straight up remove it if we don't need it. Because sometimes with WordPress themes, they give you a lot of uh, unnecessary JavaScript and CSS with your theme that you download if you're using a pre-made theme from Theme Forest or Envato. Those come with a lot of extra CSS, a lot of extra JavaScript that you don't need. And so you want to go through there and find out, what do I need and what do I don't need? And then you can defer that stuff. Now, I'm going to show you a way you can defer it if you have not hard coded your website. So there is a plugin, and I know a second ago I said I don't like plugins, but this plugin is worth it. It's called WP Rocket. This is a caching plugin that allows you to optimize all of these files and really help your website load a little bit faster. So if you are seeing a lot of these things that say remove unused JavaScript, defer CSS, defer JavaScript from loading, you'll want to get this plugin, because this will be your easiest way to go for optimizing your site. So what you'll want to do is go down to file optimization, and this will be after you've set up, obviously, caching. You want to enable caching. So you'll go down to file optimization, and you have all these options right here. Minify CSS, optimize CSS delivery, minify JavaScript files, load JavaScript deferred, and delay JavaScript execution. These are all of the things that I was being told right here, because look, this is CSS, JavaScript, Java. Okay, you get the point. There's a lot of JavaScript that is causing this website to load a little bit slower. So what you'll do is you can come in here and you can minify this CSS. Now, like it says, this could break things, so you'll want to activate it, save changes, clear your cache, and then go check out your website and make sure nothing's broken. Okay, cool. Everything looks good. We're still working. The website's not broken. Good deal. Now, you can combine CSS files. I would not recommend this if your site is using HTTP2. So usually you should just leave that unchecked. Optimize CSS delivery. This is something that you want to do, because this will optimize the CSS delivery, and it eliminates render blocking CSS, which is this. Like this says, eliminate render blocking resources. And we see on here CSS. Cool. We have two large CSS files that are blocking the resources from rendering. And my guess is that this is probably a lot of leftover CSS that comes prepackaged with our WordPress theme. So you'll want to optimize that delivery, and this will eliminate those render blocking resources from loading. Once again, I recommend that you, after you do each one of these, you save changes, clear your cache, and then come over here and refresh your website. Make sure that nothing is broken. Make sure that everything's still loading right. Cool. Moving on. We've got JavaScript files, which, if you remember from over here, majority other than the first two were JavaScript. There's a lot of unused JavaScript here. So we're going to want to minify these JavaScript files. It could break things. Okay, then you say, okay, save changes. You guys know the song and dance. Clear cache. You come back over here. Make sure your website's still working. Click around. Don't just look at the home page, because there are other pages that have stuff on them. So go to your services pages. Make sure that everything is looking good to go. Awesome. Go back to file optimization. We got a few more to look at. You have the option to combine JavaScript files just like you had the option to combine CSS files. I would not recommend that because a lot of WordPress websites are still using HTTP2, so I wouldn't recommend that. Just skip this for now. You can load JavaScript deferred, which is something that we are told over here. Right here. So you can reduce the JavaScript execution time. And so you can find that if you load these things deferred and you delay the execution, this will improve. When you delay execution of JavaScript things, you're not going to break any visual things on your website. A lot of times, these are things like Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, your chat widgets like Podium, and those other third-party scripts is usually what slows your website down. If you've been following along with any of our road shows in the morning, then you've probably heard me rant about this a lot, about Google providing all of these third-party scripts for your website being the reason that slow your website down, and then over here saying you need to remove them. That's something that has been irking me a little bit, but you got to just play the game. So load JavaScript deferred, delay JavaScript execution. Now, this is really important, probably the most important step here. When you click delay JavaScript execution, and when you click this, you'll immediately see all of these scripts. This is going to be an opportunity for you to find out which ones are important and which ones aren't. This is showing me all of the JavaScript files with our website and all of the different widgets. If I need one of these to load, not delayed, like I need it to load right off the bat at the beginning of it, you can come here and for the sake of this example, we'll say font awesome. We'll just delete it. Okay. That's all you do. So if you want something to actually load, not deferred or delayed, then you just delete it from that line. Now you save changes, clear cache, and you come back over to your website. And as you can see, everything's still working. And theoretically, next time we run a page speeds insight, it should maybe run a little faster. You won't see it right off the bat because it doesn't always work the next time you run that report. But if you give it a couple hours and you run it again, you will see a significant improvement in your website's load time. I hope this tutorial was helpful for any marketers or website owners out there. If you have more questions about it, head over to rivaldigital.com and reach out to us directly. And I'd be glad to walk you through some additional ways to speed up your website and make it load fast in time for the algorithm update coming in May. Take care, everyone.